And we're live, gentlemen.
Nice.
Hey, you guys know, Tristan, I don't know if you remember the what is it? The car dealership right next to the hotel at Granton Boulevard. You know what I'm talking about? So right now there's like Miller's.
Theoretically, yes, go on.
I think it might be Ford Kennedy or something. Well,
What about it?
a guy just sent me a picture, right, of behind the dealership. It's like where Men's Warehouse is, you know, one of my favorite places. There's like 6 trailers back there with people living in them, like RVs with kids running around.
Like van life people or homeless people?
I would imagine homeless, but living in a, you know,
Good Lord.
a fucking trailer back there.
It's going to
This
become
shit, the
Portland.
shit up in Northeast is going crazy, man. But the guy sent me a text. He's like, hey, do you think I should call the cops? There's like a 7-year-old kid running around out here.
What are they going to do? I mean, you know that. I mean, it's hard to get the cops to do anything that involves kids.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, it can't hurt, but they're probably not going to be able to do anything. So, but that's for another day. Welcome to the man, the former Toronto Blue Jays pitcher, Boo, and Father Judge Hall of Famer, Mr. Bob File. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Yeah, right on. Always a pleasure, Mark.
Dude, it was Tristan, I don't know if you follow. So last year, Father Judge baseball won the state championship, man.
Yeah, I've seen it popping up on Facebook. People I know's kids are on those teams, I guess.
That was crazy, man. You know how hard that is in Pennsylvania, nonetheless?
Yeah, especially I imagine coming out of the Catholic League's got to be hard.
Yeah, once you get out of the city, it's like everybody is top notch, man. That was a pretty solid journey. Did you watch any? Did you go to any games, Bob?
Yeah, I saw a couple. I actually worked their camp last summer. That was after they won, so I met a lot of the kids that were on the team. But yeah, I know they faced some good competition. The hardest competition they faced really was in the Catholic League. Like LaSalle, I think, was one of the better teams in the state. And then once they got into the states, it was they faced a couple good pitchers, but overall they had a solid team all around. I mean, but to win the states is that's tough. I mean, really tough. But yeah, they have that one kid still pitching there. He's a senior now. He's going to St. John's. Hell of a player. Yeah,
I'd imagine that's the deciding factor.
Yeah, pitching, and if you have a good pitch in the middle, up the middle, like catcher, pitcher, shortstop, second baseman, center field, that's all you need in high school. If you have good pitching and solid middle infield, you can win.
You can go far.
For softball, you need a pitcher.
Story.
You get a solid pitcher, you can. And it's a shame because we're struggling right now. Our starting pitcher last year, solid kid, and had I had her this year, be a different story, man. But I feel bad because the girl that I have in there, like she wants to pitch and she's giving it her all. It's just not clicking yet. But like I told her, you know, we'll just keep working at it. Eventually it will. But yeah, it was good to see that. I watched because my son goes to Archbishop Wood, and the year before they played, I believe it was the year before they played Judge in the playoffs.
They went up a walk-off grand slam, right?
And they had a walk. Archbishop Wood was down 2. Listen, it was the legitimate fucking move that you have as a kid in your backyard. Bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the 7th, and the kid hits a walk-off grand slam to send them to the championship. That was insane, man. That's a good program. You know, so I want to ask you this first, Bob. When you pitched, was Angel Hernandez in the league? Did you ever have him?
Yeah, he was. It's funny. I know more about umpires now than I did then. Because when I didn't really pay attention to who they were, what they were. The longer you're in the league, the more you get to know them. He was around. I think he was mostly National League, though. I don't think he did American League games at the time because the interleague was new. So we played interleague like a handful series. But I remember there was this guy, McClelland. I don't know if he's still around, older guy. He was, some of them were tough. They were, especially on rookies at the
Jim
time.
McClelland.
But yeah.
Do you, Did they?
He was around, but he you know, it's funny though. He's getting a lot of heat, and he does deservedly so. But I mean, I was looking at the game the other day. He's getting all this heat online about it. And some of those pitches, I mean, they're out of the zone because they have the box up and everything, and they have like the. But I mean, they're not that much out of the zone. You see some of those games Maddox used to pitch back in the day, like 20 years ago. I mean, you're talking Eric Gregg. You see those highlights?
Oh my God!
I mean, so it's tough being umpire right now. I mean, you're so scrutinized. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think, my opinion, I think they should get rid of that box off TV.
I know
it's annoying. I don't understand why they do it. I really don't. I wish some people would, somebody would say, hey, listen, here in Philly, you know, Comcast, you know, can we have at least an option where it's just not there? I don't know, but it does suck to watch that, because you're right. Now we get to see that ball that nicks the corner, and they don't call it a strike, or, you know, an inch or two off the plate, and they call it a strike, and now we're all flipping out. But
yeah.
How would they act with you guys? Would they come up for like autographs to like the big stars and stuff like that?
No,
and they try to get buddy.
I mean, the only time you would see stuff like that is behind the scenes, like in the clubhouse. Like visiting teams, you send over a box to the other team, like of stuff that people want signed by, like, you know, Jeters of the world and those guys. But I'm sure the umpires do the same, maybe like on the down low, because it looks like kind of preferential treatment if they're getting autographs from, you know. But yeah, I'm sure it happens. They were good to me. I mean, for the most part, I never had an issue besides getting thrown out of one game in Philly, but that wasn't the umpire really. Yeah, I mean, they're all right. They kind of stay behind the scenes. They stay at some of the hotels the players stay at, and you'll see them in the gym and working out and things like that. Sometimes on the road. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's a rough lifestyle they're living. I mean, they're getting paid good money, but they're traveling. They're living out of a suitcase the entire year. They're not going home. Like, there's no home series that they'll go home to. So it's a kind of tough. It's a tough. And I often say, like, I knew a lot of the umpires in the minor leagues I came up with, and they're trying to do the same thing as minor leaguers, go up, go up, go up. But the problem they run into is, like, you know, umpires have to die for them to get promoted. Or I mean, umpires, they umpire for 30, 40 years. Like Angel Hernandez, you know? I mean, guys like that. There's guys sitting in AAA and AA right now, umpires that are just living that tough lifestyle, just waiting to get lucky. I mean, there's a local guy from Horsham area. I forget his name. I knew him. He was he's a big league umpire now. He's from our area. I had to look him up. But yeah, he got in the league. He broke in. He was doing, like, you're on like a temporary basis at first as umpires, and then if you kind of pass the test, you kind of, you know, it's kind of being like a teacher when you get tenure kind of thing.
Is it Alan Porter?
Yes, Alan Porter. That's exactly it. Great guy, phenomenal guy. Like, I worked a couple of baseball camps with him 10 years ago, and some of the stories he has is pretty funny. He's a great guy.
I saw Eric Gregg. I chewed his ear off one night at Chicky and Pete's, because anybody that doesn't remember, when he was an umpire, there was a strike where all these umpires banded together and said, we're striking. And they left, and that was the only window MLB had to fire certain umpires. So they're like, all right, go ahead and strike. And then they shit can a bunch of them when they all tried to come back, and they said, nope, you're out. So Eric Gregg was out.
So encourage Angel Hernandez to go on strike. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, you know, so, and I was talking to him one night at Chicky and Pete's. Ironically, I don't even know why I was there. But he was telling me back then who were the great people, who were assholes. Lenny Dykstra told a story before, and when I asked him, I was like, who is your pain in the ass player? He said Dykstra right off the bat. But Dykstra tells a story how there was a game on a Sunday afternoon, but he was out till like 4 a.m. on Saturday, getting, you know, liquored up the whole 9 yards. And he wakes up and he sees that he's in his starting lineup. So he was mad at Fregosi. He's like, oh man, I really needed this day. So he goes up and he's batting.
A recovery day.
The first pitch is right down the middle for a strike. He doesn't swing. And he looks at Greg. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he starts yelling at him, trying to get run. And Greg goes, oh, no. He's like, Fregosi already told me you want a day off. He's like, I'm sweating this day out. You're sweating this day out. He's like, I'm not running you. And he had to play. So that was pretty. I can imagine they have some ridiculous stories, man.
Yeah.
My buddy, our old boss, Justin, our old lieutenant, is the MLB authenticator.
Yeah, you see him on the sideline there sometimes,
really?
like right by the bench. Yep.
He sits right next to the dugout. So you'll see when a ball boy, anybody who watches a game, they take the ball over to him like a foul ball or ball out of play. He marks it.
Was he with the sticker on it, the little hologram or something?
Yeah, and then they sell it later on. But he's told me some stories about some people, but I'll keep that for another day. So, but all right. So, well, listen, a lot of people, since we last talked, we did this a while ago. We had Bob on, and you know, he got to fulfill a dream that we all in the baseball world, you know, wanted to accomplish at one point, is play in the show. So you were a Father Judge. Take us through it. So you were Father Judge High School standout. You were a star there.
Shortstop.
Shortstop.
Never pitched there.
Right. You were an infielder. Never pitched an inning. You go to what was it? Which school, college you go to again? I'm sorry for you.
Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, which is now Jefferson University.
Go there. Again, you're a standout there. That's where the scouts start picking you up. So take us through your journey from.
Oh, you broke up a little bit. We lose Mark?
Did you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, here you go. He's
we got you now. You're back.
This for our journey. Yeah.
Yeah, this stupid microphone. I don't know. Sorry. But yeah, that's when you got on the scouts radar from there on. How'd that go? How'd that feel and everything?
I mean, you know, I went to a Division II school and I just had conversations. I actually just worked with a kid who went to Westchester and he's not playing at all as a freshman. And it's tough because they're a Division II powerhouse now. And I try to tell kids that are coming out of high school, you know, you want to go somewhere where you can play day one, right? And that's why I went to Textile, which is Division II, Jefferson University. I played every single game there as a freshman. And like I had a slight offer from Temple at the time, and it was Division I, and you know, my dad was all about that too. But I probably wouldn't have played my freshman year at all. I mean, maybe. I mean, you never know. But I think having a chance to play every day helped me grow. Because if you miss a year as a freshman, even if you're on a bench, you're practicing, but you're missing active reps in the game. So I wound up going there, and it turned out a lot of reasons good in my favor. I mean, came in as a middle infielder there, was shifted to third base because of my build, and I got stronger when I was in college, and I was big, and I was more of a hitter, obviously, in college. I didn't pitch at all in high school or college until my junior year. I pitched a couple innings, kind of like in relief, because we're a small D2 school. We don't have a pitching depth. We have guys that are two-way players, but we were lucky. We had a couple guys. The year after I got drafted, two more pitchers got drafted. We had some guys that benefited from me getting scouted so much my junior and senior year that, you know, the other folks on the team, that's how smaller schools kids get noticed, because scouts are there to see somebody else and they're there and they see you. But ultimately, my senior year, I had a really good year offensively, where I was like lighting up the statistic board nationally. So scouts started to come out to see because they were curious. They're like, what's this small school, whatever. And so when they came to see, I was pitching actually a little more in my senior year. And we had double headers every Saturday. So the first game I played third, the second game I'd pitch. And they would stick around and be like, oh, let's just see this guy pitch. And a couple teams took to my liking pitching. I knew how to pitch. I pitched in all the rec leagues, Devon League, all the leagues in high school. I was still pitching outside of high school. It's just at the time, Joe McDermott, who was the head coach at Father Judge, he had this thing, no two-way players, just pitching or shortstop. What do you want to do? You want to hit or you want to pitch? I tell him I want to hit. So I never got to pitch there. So I pitched my senior year, and I threw hard. I mean, I threw like 92, 94 miles an hour.
That's the real 94, not the fake 94 today.
Don't even get me started that. Yeah. I mean, so, and one of the games, the Toronto scout beside me, it's actually a shame. He just passed away last week. But he was a scout for the Blue Jays for like 30, 40 years. I mean, he signed Dave Steeb. That's how, I mean, he's been around that long. But that's the thing. That's the best thing that ever happened to me. He actually, you know, put me into the draft and actually said, you know, I want to take a flyer on this kid. And being with his experience, they were able to take his opinion, you know, not lightly. And they actually took a chance and drafted me. Because if it could have been some associate scout that was just like new, they would have been like, who's this? I mean, there's 540 plus D1 schools in the nation. I mean, we're a D2 school. There's so many guys ahead of me. So it was kind of a combination of things, getting a little lucky, getting my name out there offensively, and then scouts to come in and see me pitch. And then ultimately I got taken in the 19th round my senior year. And they drafted me as a third baseman. But when I signed, they said, you might pitch. I was like, all right, sure. And
Now,
that's all I ever did.
Where I know you told me a funny story about the scout when he wanted to pick you in the last round, right?
Oh, I told you that story.
You
Yeah, I
did
just
tell me that
this
yeah.
year. Oh yeah, that one must have been the last time. Yeah. So the national cross checker, Tim Wilkin, who I keep in touch with, he's not with the Blue Jays anymore. I think he retired. He told me the story that Ben McClure, the scout who signed me, put me in to be drafted in I think it was the 47th round. The draft was 50 rounds at this time.
Mm.
And because he said in the 47th round that there has been no big league player to ever come out of the 47th round ever. And Ben said that, this is my shot. I want to draft in the 47th round. And so Tim Wilkin told me that we took you in the 19th round because we heard through the grapevine that a couple of teams are going to take you sooner than that.
Mhm.
So you weren't going to be around. But plus with Ben's opinion and his scouting report on you, we knew you went last. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's nice. But it's funny how he's like, Ben was so confident that you make it to the big leagues. And he saw something that I certainly didn't see, because I was like, once I got into low A ball, rookie ball, low A ball, high A ball, and I was like, man, these guys are unbelievable. I mean, I was just like average compared to the rest of the guys on the teams, in my opinion.
Well, obviously not. You made it a little faster than that. So, what was now for explain the minor leagues? Not everybody understands. They just think AAA, AA, and then single.
Yeah,
but there's like
it's changed a
several
little
levels,
bit,
right?
Yeah, and this is what people don't understand. I mean, it's changed quite a bit in the last couple of years. They really consolidated minor league teams, so it's a little different. That's why it's so much harder to get drafted and stay in them. But ultimately, I always say there's 5 levels before you even get to AA. Like there's rookie ball. There's actually Gulf Coast. Like there's pre-rookie ball. There's rookie ball. Then there's short season A ball. And then there's low season A ball. And there's high A, long full season. Then there's AA, AAA. But like A ball has 4 different levels to it. And I started out in rookie ball out in Medicine Hat, Alberta, which is right above Montana, 2 hours from the border. And they basically send people there to, live or die in terms of baseball. Like you're going out there. I was a 4-year senior. I was lucky enough to be on a team with a bunch of 4-year seniors. They stacked that team with a lot of older guys at the time. It's usually, 16, 17-year-old Dominican Venezuelan guys, Latinos that fill up those teams. But we had Jay Gibbons was on my team. Orlando Hudson was on my team. They both played plenty of years in the big leagues. There was a couple other big leaguers on that team, which is unheard of for rookie ball. So my point being, I guess I was a reliever. I came in. I didn't pitch the first 10 days of the season. I was like, what is this? And I winded up getting lucky and being the closer of that team. And being a closer on a team that wins, I mean, we had the most wins in the Pioneer League, I think, ever. We played 82 games. I think we won like 60 we won a lot of games. So that gave me a lot of opportunity to pitch. So I wound up being a closer, stood out there, and kind of came in the spring training next year and made the high A team. So I skipped like 3 levels and made the high A team. And a lot of that goes on age as well. I was a senior coming out of college, but I was a young senior. But like by the time I got to high A ball, I was 22. And so I was happy to make high A ball because I was on par with the rest of the guys my age at that point. So then getting out of high A ball is the toughest. The toughest jump is to AA. A lot of guys, you're going from like 160, 170 guys to a roster of 30 in AA. And that's the hardest jump. Once you get to AA, you usually have a good idea whether you have a shot to make it to the big leagues because guys will weed themselves out in AA pretty quickly. Because that's where you're talking some serious talent in AA.
How long did you so you did you go right to AA?
I played a full season in A ball, and then I went to spring and made the AA team that next year. And I was lucky, a lot of luck. It starts at the line too. Like people don't understand, you need a lot of things to go right, besides just stats, being talented, at least if you're not a top 5 rounder. So I went to AA, but my manager from A ball, where I had a great year, moved up to AA too. And we got along great, and he loved me. And that was huge for me because he actually slided me right into the closer role day one because his job's on the line too. But his name was Rocket Wheeler. Great name, Rocket Wheeler.
Rocket Wheeler. That's a beast name.
He was a fiery guy too. But he made my minor league career because he put me in a great position to succeed there. And I played there for most of the season until the end of July, and then I got promoted to AAA. And when I got promoted, AAA was challenged. There was a closer there already, but again, talk about luck. the fifth game I'm there in the beginning of August. Line drive back at the closer, breaks his leg. He's out for the year.
Ooh.
And they put me in the closer role to finish the year. So
you got Wally
10
Pipp.
saves. Yes, and I got like a bunch of saves. I was able to kind of, and Mel Queen was there. He's since passed away, but he's the one who brought like Roy Halladay back from his disastrous kind of stint. So he taught me a lot. And then I did like a couple things in the off season where Buck Martinez was going to be the new manager, and I kind of got to know him personally a little bit. And again, it's just like business too, where you're trying to make networking relationships. You got to, in the minor leagues, I always tell people that I talk to that are playing in the minor leagues that if you get a chance to go to big league camp and you're talking to the coaches and the managers, you got to like introduce yourself, say hello, let them get to know you a little bit as the person. So this way, when they see a stat sheet and they say, okay, this guy's hitting so-and-so, and this guy's hitting the same, who are we going to bring up? Oh, I know this guy, had a couple conversations, a solid guy, same idea. So ultimately, I got lucky again. I went to spring training, had a really good spring, but I was young. It was a veteran team in 2001. The Blue Jays competed in 2000 against the Yankees to win the division. They almost won the division that year. And so it was a tough team to break camp with. So they were trying to make room, but they sent me to back to Double-A because it was warmer there. And I didn't know at the time. I was annoyed. I was like, this is ridiculous. And 7 days into the season, I got called back up to Toronto. They had to make room on the roster, and they had to shuffle guys around. So then,
I love there's something I always wanted to do. And I know we had talked before, and there's a guy that's actually writing a book about
called up, about
stories. Being called up, the story, where you were, what you did, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. Your story's funny, man. Tell us when you got called up, what it was like, and that whole process, that whole day.
So it's definitely the whole day. It's something you never ever forget. Because I was in Double-A again, and we're playing at the West Tennessee Diamond Jacks, which is on the other side of Tennessee. I was in Knoxville at the time, so we're on the road. So you only bring like enough for 4, 7, 8 day road trip or whatever in your suitcase. And we would go work out in the mornings in the minor leagues. Like there was no organized. There was sometimes a team bus. We had to take taxis. So me, Mike Young, I think Jay Gibbons, we took a taxi to the gym. We work out at like 9 in the morning. Games at 7. But we're working out early in the morning, and then we get done at the gym. We decide to walk back to the hotel, and it's a pretty hike. It's a couple miles, and there's highways and stuff, but that's what we do just to kind of. And I get a phone call on my cell phone. So I had a cell phone then. This is back in 2001. So everybody had cell phones by then, the flip phones or whatever it may be. And it was Rocket Wheeler, my manager. He's like, "Hey, where are you? I'm knocking on your door. You're not here. Where the hell are you? You got to go to the big leagues." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm at the gym." He's like, "Of course you are. Where else would you be?" Like, he's just busting my chops, but he's like, "You got to get back here now. We got to get you on a plane. We have to get." I'm like, all flustered. I'm in the middle of. I always tell people, because you guys know the Roosevelt Boulevard. So there's a road like that. I was in like the middle of it, and I'm on my phone, and there's cars like flying by, and I'm like, okay, I gotta run. So I like ran to the hotel right from there, and I literally had to take like a 2-3 hour cab ride back to Knoxville, fly out of Knoxville, get a connecting flight. But it's great because when you get called up to the big leagues, they got to fly you first class, and I had never flown first class in my entire life, not even close. And I was like, this is unbelievable. So I fly all the way to Toronto. So I'm literally from 10 in the morning, driving, flying. Game's at 7 that night in Toronto. I had to be at the game. I have nowhere to. I'm in a hotel somewhere. I don't know Toronto at all, and there's no Ubers. So I'm like trying to find out how to get to the stadium. I'm like calling people. I don't know anybody on the team really at all besides like Paul Quantrill at the time. And he came pick me up, took me to the stadium. So by the time all this happens, I get to the stadium at like 6, and I'm exhausted. Maybe earlier than that. It might have been like 5 because I had time. I wanted to go out in the stadium, kind of do a little jog. And I'm running on the stadium, out running poles out in Sky Dome, and I come back in, and I probably told you this about the roof. The roof comes crashing down.
Oh yeah, that's
right. A piece of the roof comes crashing down to the outfield after I'm done my run, and it was like a car falling from the sky.
Wow!
And they canceled the game. They canceled the game that night. I was like, this is because I remember saying like, there's no way the game can get canceled. I'm exhausted. If I had to pitch tonight, I don't want my first outing to get shelled. And the game canceled. I think it was one of the only games that canceled the Sky Dome ever because of that incident. And it was fixed, and the next day we played. But
that's
wild story. It was like, what are the chances of that?
Who was the first person you called?
My dad, yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's crazy because they couldn't come to my debut because my dad refused to fly anywhere. Typical Northeast Philly
I'm the same way. I hate
guy.
flying, man.
He's never flown on a plane. He passed away, never flown on a plane. They were going to drive up, but it was like 8 hours, so they couldn't get there on time. But yeah, they were thrilled, obviously, and you know, it's it
So,
was a hell of a run. It was
so
Austin
you
Day.
get, so you're in the middle of the highway. You get called up. They cancel the game. What a that's unbelievable. How long until you got in your first game?
It was a couple days. I know it was like we were playing the Royals. It was probably like five. It was quite a few days. It wasn't right away. But we were playing the Royals, and Buck Martinez kept saying, "I'm going to put you in a like no pressure situation." I'm like, "I'll be fine. I'm good." Like I was like, whatever. But he knew. I mean, he played like 20 years in the big leagues. He knew what happens when you get into a big league game, and I had no idea. And I always try to explain it like I got called in. It was the top of the ninth at the Sky Dome. We were down by 4 runs, 5-1, I believe we were down. It might have been 5-2, maybe down three, because yeah. And I came in the game with 2 outs, and Hector Ortiz was up. I think he was like the 8 or 9 hitter. So it was like the most non-pressure situation you could be in. And he's a right-hander, which I was a sinker baller. It was like the ultimate time to bring me in. So he brings me in, and I get on the mound. I'm warming up, and I'm fine, but I'm throwing everything high. I'm like, I can tell I'm like, I'm not myself. And then when the hitter steps in, you feel like your legs are gonna give out from under you. Like I was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I didn't feel it mentally, but physically I was like, how am I even gonna throw a ball?
Your
It
body's
is
like,
the
holy
weirdest feeling. I
shit.
haven't felt that way again. Haven't felt that way again since. And I remember my first pitch. I actually just posted it because it was 23 years ago the other day, or 23 years ago as of April, whatever it was. And I was watching the footage I had, and I remember the first pitch like it was yesterday because I threw it and it was like high, and I was like, man, I'm really nervous right now. And then I got another strike call, and then I had a ball call that was like right there. I'm like, oh man. And wound up 5 pitches, got on the ground out, and then the next inning we came back against Roberto Hernandez. If you remember that guy, he was a closer through like
Yeah, yeah.
100, and we came back and we won the game. So I got a 5 pitch win in my first outing, which is
That's
unreal.
pretty cool.
And you sold his bat off too, right? You broke his
Yeah,
bat.
yeah. That was having a hard sinker. Even when I threw it up high, a lot of times I would throw it belt high and would just go in and break bats. That's why I look so good to hitters. But yeah,
You still got the ball.
yeah, it's actually right up there on my bookshelf. I actually gave it to my parents, and now I took it back from my parents when they moved and stuff. So I have it right there.
You did it. So you literally got to fulfill that dream. Everybody, we've all wished we could have done. And afterwards, were you just sitting there and all like, this holy shit, this journey, I did it.
I'm here.
I can't imagine that feeling. And I know it's almost impossible to explain. But the next day after that, you get your win. You do what is it like a day in a major league? Well, back in your day, I know it's probably different now. What is it like to live a day as an MLB player? Waking up,
I mean,
the hotels, the food, the service, all that. What's that like?
It's gotten even better now, a lot better. But it was good then too. I mean, compared to the minor leagues the minor leagues are so much better now than they were. They're not great still, but I mean, I was making $700 a month before taxes in the minor leagues. I tell people stories all the time, like eating in the minor leagues. I would go to Chipotle down south in like the Southern League where I played in AA. That was like Knoxville, all the North Carolina, South Carolina teams. Chipotle had opened up down there. It wasn't up this way yet, and they would sell those burritos. I would get one burrito, and I would eat half for lunch, half for dinner. That's all we could afford. We got $10 a day for meal money in the minor leagues. I mean, kidding me? So when you get to the big leagues, it's like such an eye-opening thing. Like, first of all, you just like there's like basically a convenience store in the clubhouse. Like, and there's chefs in there, and they're cooking food. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is like overkill. I'm like, compared to what you come from in the minor leagues, especially coming from growing up in Northeast Philly, it's not like we came up in this like high class society. So the minor leagues were, I mean, it was a rough road, and the big league life. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's so high end that But for me, I was never under a contract for a multi-year. I was never comfortable to where I was like, okay, I'm part of the team. I always felt like I was grinding. You have one bad outing as a reliever. If you have a second bad outing as a reliever, I mean, your radar goes up. You might get sent down the next day. So I was constantly not being able to fully enjoy it. I found myself, I enjoy more talking about it now than I did 20 years ago, because I was constantly worried about, if I walk a few guys or have a bad outing, I'm going down the next day. So I was constantly really focused. I mean, constantly focused on the field. I mean, travel in the big leagues. I mean, we had a chartered jet for the Toronto Blue Jays, like the owner. We had our own jet, first class seating, couches in there, poker tables. I mean, every seat had its own TV. I mean, it was unbelievable. You board the plane off the bus, you just go right out the back steps. There's no like waiting in line at customs or anything like that. Customs would bring dogs on the plane and stuff like that. But travel was just like top notch. I mean, it was nothing like the minor leagues. I mean, minor leagues, I once did a bus ride from Medicine Hat, Alberta to Ogden, Utah, which is like 20 some hours one way.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, and then in the Southern League, we used to go, we had one stretch where we played 2 games in Knoxville, 2 games in, I think it was where the Carolina Mudcats play. And it was 8 hours one way. We played 2 games, go 8 hours, 2 games back at home, 2 games there, 8 hours back and forth. And you're playing every day. And you're sleeping like 2 hours a day. It's crazy. So when you get to the big leagues, there's a day off a week. Usually you have getaway day, you have a day off, at least one day off a week. In the minor leagues, you have one day off a month or two, every month too. So it's more of a better lifestyle. You're able to kind of like recover. Actually, there's weight rooms everywhere. You don't have to travel and cross highways to go to weight rooms. It's just a matter of staying there. I mean, the competition to big, I always say there should be like another level after AAA, like 4A. People say it all the time. I mean, the competition from AAA to the big leagues is night and day. There's night and day. I mean, you see guys, I just read an article the other day about the Phillies. They have a couple guys, doing really well in AAA. I mean, I played with guys that were MVP of the league in AAA and couldn't even stay more than a month in the big leagues. I mean, it's a different world, completely different world. But the lifestyle, I mean, man, it's pretty unbelievable.
Now this is the one I'm sure everybody thinks about. The money, your first major league paycheck. What was that moment like? So I know there's 2 big moments as a major leaguer: getting the call and getting that first paycheck.
So they did have direct deposit in 2001, so that was still around, but you still got your pay stubs in your locker. And I always tell the story because it's pretty funny, because it's all public knowledge in terms of what I was making. So the major league minimum was $200,000 a year, which again, I grew
still
up in
great money
in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? Like $200,000 a year. Are you serious?
That's a lot.
So my first
Man.
So again, I was making $700 before taxes in the minor leagues. I literally had, I think, $200 in my bank account total, and my first paycheck for 2 weeks was $12,000 clear. And I was just like blown away. I was blown away. I was like, this is more money I've ever had in my entire life. More money my family's ever had, I think. So it's funny. My first paycheck, I bought my mom a washer and dryer because she wanted this premier washer and dryer forever. She still has them today.
Nice.
And I paid off all my student loans I had with that check. I didn't have a whole lot, but I paid them off. So that's what I used my first check for. And it's funny, Carlos Delgado was in the locker 2 down from me. And he's laughing. He's like, "You think your paycheck's a lot?" Ha 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 ha. He was making $17 million. He would clear over $1 million every 2 weeks because you're getting paid in 6 months stretch there in a 6-month span. They don't pay you throughout the year, but still, that kind of money, obviously, because I look at the major league minimum now, it's like close to $700,000, which even with inflation and everything, it's only 20. I stopped playing 18 years ago, 16, 17 years ago. I'm like, oh my goodness, if that was the minimum when I played, I would have had a pretty good nest egg, But yeah, the money, I mean, it's a different world. I mean, I was pretty judicious. I was pretty frugal. I mean, I saved a lot. I got hurt my next year and I was on the big league roster, so I was able to save a lot of money, and I was just smart with it, even though, I never got a chance to make millions. But yeah, the money, I mean, but there's some, you hear guys say it, you make more money. There's a lot of expenses. There is at the big league level. Like, people don't realize what clubhouse dues cost. Clubhouse dues are outrageous. What's for that? All that convenience store. So in a clubhouse, obviously, you have all those amenities, right? You have like the chefs. And you do all your laundry. You do everything, right? So clubhouse dues at home are $750 a day.
Wow.
Jesus.
On the road, they're about the same. So you go to Yankee Stadium, play a 4-game series, you got to write a check after you're done for like $2,000.
Wow. Oh, shit. Every
player. A lot of players tip a lot too, depending on what they make. Like a Delgado is going to tip the clubhouse guy. They do a lot. They go wash their car. They do a lot of different things for them. But yeah, the clubhouse dues are a lot. The Major League Players Association dues are $1,000 a month, I believe they are now. So there's some big peep chunks, not those, you know.
And the team won't take care of you on that?
No, the clubhouse dues are all part of. That's what it is. I mean, I paid 25, 30 grand in clubhouse dues, maybe more in my first year. So that comes right off the top. So that's something you have no choice and you have to pay them, you know. So, but they're probably more now. And we used to get 6 tickets a game too, every game. 4 family level tickets, family section tickets, and 2 kind of guest tickets, and they were free. So like when I played at the Vet, I was able to take other guys' tickets, write names down, and I gave 100 tickets. But now it started probably started 12, 13, 15 years ago. They charge the players for the face value of the tickets. They leave.
Wow.
So even if you know, like, let's say you know whoever, like Trey Turner, and he's leaving you tickets, he's got to pay for those. Mm-hmm. That's why guys don't leave tickets as easy as before. Like I used to go to Boston. I had a bunch of guys I went to college with. I had friends of friends. I said, yeah, I'll leave you 12 tickets, whatever. You know, it doesn't cost me anything. But now they pay for that because tickets, all these stadiums, I mean, baseball's blown up in terms of revenue. So, you know, you Phillies games even. Like we have a players association. I'm still part of the alumni union. And we have ticket kind of policies per stadium. Like every stadium has a ticket policy. Most alumni, you can get tickets. Whether you pay for them, some give them free. But the Phillies, man, that's a hard ticket to get. Even alumni can't get tickets. You have to be Phillies alumni only, and you have to pay for tickets. Like I have no preferential treatment at Phillies games, which sucks. Because in Toronto, I get 4 free tickets for life if I go to Toronto.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm part of the alumni.
So things have changed since the Vet, I imagine. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're packing that place out. I mean, the amount of money coming in. I mean, and they have good teams now. So I mean, it's a hot ticket now. I mean,
speaking of the Vet, you get to come home.
That's great.
And play in front of, you know, your family, your friends, in front of your city you grew up in. What?
Yeah.
You and it was a great incident during the game too. So tell us about that day. You come home. Did you sleep at the hotel or did you stay at your parents' house?
Well, it happened at the right time. The All-Star break was right before the Philly series. So the Philly series was the first series after the All-Star break. So the All-Star break, we get like 4 days, whatever it is. So most guys go home that aren't in the All-Star game. And so that's what I did. I went home. But lucky for me, you know, I was staying at my parents on Loring Street in Mayfair off of Frankford.
Frankford and Loring, yeah, right there.
Frankford and Loring. And, you know, we were opening against the Phillies. So I stayed at their house. I don't think I stayed at the hotel. We were staying at the Ritz the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Mm-hmm. That was the hotel we stayed at. And I stayed at home for 2 nights. I know that at least. And, you know, my dad drove me down to the stadium. I was like, Dad, I need a ride to work. And we were jokes. He's like, he was just happy he got to drive up to the players' entrance and like drop me off. He thought that was so cool.
You don't want to take the L?
Yeah, it's right. I mean, I've taken the BART. I've taken some other. But yeah, it was great. And you know, it's funny. Buck Martinez knew I was from Philly. And he was just amazing because, like, this is a major league season, and I know he went out of his way to find the right. Even though I was doing well, he was finding positions for me to get in those games. Like I pitched 2 of the 3 Phillies games, which, again, like there was a timing thing where I was the right fit, but at the same time, I think he knew that like would mean a lot if I pitched in Philly, and a lot of managers would give a shit, you know. But yeah, the first night I got in, I pitched, I did well. It was the second night that, you know, I ran into some trouble, and I wound up, you know, giving up my first major league home run there to Scott Rowland on a 3-2 changeup, which I'll never forget to this day because I never threw changeups, and he just kept fouling the ball. I couldn't get him to stop. He fouled off like 6-7 in a row. And I was like, maybe I'll just throw a changeup in the dirt, and he'll either walk him or he'll strike out. And it didn't get in the dirt, and he was ahead of it, and he hit the foul ball, hit a home run. So then the next hitter was Travis Lee. And
what a bum. I know you're not going to say nothing bad about Travis, but God, what he
No, I mean, he's not a bad guy. What a disappointment
here in Philly. But
A lot of expectations on him, you know. But a lot of people don't realize, because you see the highlights. Even when I see the highlights, I remember the next at bat like it was yesterday. But the highlights show me drilling Travis like right after the home run, and that's not what happened. I actually threw a slider down and in that he ripped down the line. It was like this much foul from being like a double down the line, and I just give him a home run. I'm like, seriously, these guys taking these hacks like this? So my next pitch, I wanted a fastball in, hard in. Like I want to move him off the plate. I want to like whoa, okay, because that will get guys thinking a little bit. Because you see guys that don't pitch inside, and the guys will keep swinging out their ass. But so the next pitch we went hard in, and obviously I drilled him in the back, and I got thrown out of the game right away. I was like caught off guard. Like if you ever see the highlight, I'm like, what's going on here? And then, I mean, the stadium's so loud, the boos. I mean, and all behind home plate is everybody I left tickets for. Like all home plate, the whole family section is basically like 300-400 people, college friends, high school. And Marlon Anderson comes running out of the dugout. If you remember Marlon Anderson, Noah grabs him from charging me. Because they had hit Delgado two times the night before and once that game already. And I forgot both teams got warnings already. I didn't even think about that. And I got tossed right away. But it was funny. I always talk about it, like looking back at it, if Marlon Anderson actually came and charged me, I was like, there's no way I would be getting tackled on the field. And all my family, college friends, there's no way they're going to stand behind that net. My dad, there's no way. There's no way they're going to let me get my – so it would have been a melee in Philly.
That would have been such a Philly thing too, man.
Yes.
No doubt about it. There's no way they would have stayed in the stands.
A Philly kid pitching his first game home here in front of his family and friends, and a brawl breaks out with his family and friends. Absolutely, and everyone would be like,
"That's such a Philly thing."
So, Bob, let me ask you a question along that same line. Obviously, I assume you were a Phillies fan growing up. 93 Phillies are still my favorite team of all time. Was it rough to go play for Toronto after that? Like, I'm sure you don't care who you played with; it's great to make it there. But were you like, Toronto? No, I imagine it's like for Philly guys who go to the Dallas Cowboys or, you know what I mean? Something like that. It's got to be like a little bit like, bittersweet.
Yeah, 93 I was a junior in high school, and I remember it was like yesterday, right? And but when I got drafted, you don't think you get into the big league. Once you get in the minor league system, you think you have zero shot at ever making the big league. Like at least for a 19th rounder, maybe first rounders. But for me, I was like, it was like a lottery ticket. Like the chances are so far slim. And when I got into spring training, and I remember I met Cito Gaston, he was our bench coach.
Yeah.
And Cito Gaston was the manager of the 93 Toronto team. And I would sit there and just talk with him about the 93 Phillies. And I told Mark this before, I think, too, about Cito telling me a story. I might forget some of the details, but I guess Carter was up the time he hit the home run. But the guy on deck, I forget who it was on deck behind Carter. And Cito said he had a broken finger. And all he had left on the bench were pitchers to pinch hit, and the guy couldn't bat. So Cito says to me, "I have no idea if Carter didn't have the home run, I would have looked like the biggest ass ever because I would have had to put a pitcher out to pinch hit, and we didn't want to disclose the injury." And he was telling me that, and then Carter hit the home run. The rest is history. But it was always funny. Kind of, he would always bust my chops, and I mean, Cito Gaston's like a baseball legend all around baseball. I mean. And that 93 team, it's funny. They were just in a rain delay the other day, and I actually had it on the TV, and they put on the story of the 93 Phillies. If you saw that documentary, it's an older one.
Always on.
Like Kruk and Larry Anderson. I had never seen it. I actually watched the whole thing, and I was like, it's pretty interesting to hear the story. I mean, the stories and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. So for me, it was like I got to Toronto. It's interesting playing at the Sky Dome. It was like the place where they lost the World Series. It was actually pretty cool. But my whole thing. In 2001, that's when Interleague was getting really started, and I knew we were playing the Phillies at the All-Star break. And my goal in my mind was if I can get called up by mid-year, that would be perfect because that mid-year of the All-Star break is right after the mid-year for the minor leagues. And it's usually when guys get promoted. And that was kind of like my goal of being in Philly. So it was a great experience to be able to play in Philly.
What was the rookie ball breaking they did to you guys? Hazing. Were you victim of any of it?
For me, I mean, it was brutal. I'll save some of the stories because they're not really. I mean, it was pretty awful. I mean, because I was the only rookie for the first day of this season, basically. Chris Mahalik was another rookie. He was older though, but I was really the only rookie until after the All-Star break. Then they brought up a bunch of guys in September. And then that's where you see the Hooters picture where we dress up as Hooter girls and they drop us off in the middle of Times Square and we walk around. I think it's the funniest thing ever. I still have that. I'm sure you've seen the picture, Mark.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, we all laugh about that still to this day. But stuff like that, you carrying cases of beer every road trip. You have to make sure you get beer. I mean, there was a lot of different things. Singing on the bus, that's harmless. I mean, I became like a pro singer on the bus, singing Rapper's Delight and other songs. Because it's funny, there's a handful of guys on the team. That team was an older team, right? I was 24, and that team was way older than me by far. I mean, all of them were veterans. Mondesi, Delgado, Tony Batista, I mean, Quantrill, Plezak, I mean, Billy Koch. They were all older guys. So, being an only rookie. But at the same time, it was nothing that I couldn't handle because, there's a couple situations I can tell you off air.
Yeah,
but
I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, imagine you're talking. You hear college hazing stories.
Yeah.
And they don't have any money. You picture millionaires with money and the kind of hazing they can do.
And this is the old days before everybody would get bent out of shape about it too.
Oh yeah, now I heard nothing goes on now. I heard it's great. I mean, rookies come up and they, which is good. I mean, it's almost like a form of bullying if you think about it. Hazing, I mean, but again, I was 6'4", 215, 20 pounds. I mean, I wasn't like some small kid who's going to take it either. So, yeah, it was fun at times. It could be fun at times.
Did they have a team dinner where the rookies had to pay? Did they do that to you?
No, the story I got, I never did that. I mean, they tried to joke with me. This was after I was in the big leagues for quite a while, and we went out to a bunch of us went to dinner, and their bill was like $15,000, and they tried to make a joke saying, I was like, no, there's no chance I'm paying for this. I'll just walk out of here and run home. You guys have no chance. But the Billy Koch took me out my first night. We were home or on the road. He took me to Morton Steakhouse. I'd never been to a Morton Steakhouse, and he took me there. He's like, "We're going to order one thing of everything off the menu," which is me and him.
Wow.
He orders everything off the menu. He was a big spender, but he took care of me and took me out there. I mean, I think our bill was like $6,000 for two of us. I mean,
wow.
But for me, he's like, "I want to make it feel like you're never going to forget this first dinner ever."
That was cool.
You do not. Yeah, he was great. He was unbelievable. But yeah, it's, some stories like that you hear. I know hockey players do it a thing with rookies paying for team dinners. I mean, yeah, that's a bit much. But yeah,
it's funny. I was just going to say, so there's we all remember, if you're hockey fans, Sean Avery, former Ranger, pest. He was just the worst on the ice. Well, he wrote a book. It's called Ice Capades, but his life in the NHL. And it's great because he does not hold back. He tells everything.
That's great.
And he talks about the rookie dinner. I think he was with Detroit at the time. So they go out, but it was only him and another guy. They were the only two rookies. So wherever they went, he said, I think the bill was up in, and this is back in the 90s. It's like $30,000 bill. He said they were buying the fucking silverware. They were buying paintings off the wall. They were just stripping the place. And they give him the bill, and he's like, I'm sweating. He's like, I'm about to have a panic attack. He's like, I'm going to go. He went and called his mom. He's like, Mom, I'm going to need, because I only had like $8,000 on my credit card. He's like, I'll pay you back. And I think it was Steve Yzerman, because he goes to pay for it. And the waiter's like, all right, they took care of it. But they made him sweat it out. Like Stevie Y, paid the bill one of their veterans, but they made him sweat it out. Like he's calling his mom for money. Like, Mom, I need help. I need someone to pay this bill. I don't have enough money. So I can only imagine that. And that's fun, man. I mean, I would probably be sweating my balls off too. What the fuck? Or I'm
trying to wash dishes, man.
Yeah, I mean,
but hey, at least you get those memories later on. So you get through your all right. So your first year's done. You did it. We go. Now you're on the 40-man roster. You go to spring training next year. Are you automatically on a team, or you still got to fight to stay on that spot?
I was. I mean, for the most part, I was. I mean, I had such a good rookie year. I mean, I was going to be on the team. You just have to not get hurt, which unfortunately I got hurt. I actually tore a ribcage muscle during a game I didn't know what it was. I was just like, oh, what's that, a cramp? And I couldn't even breathe. And I tore like an intercostal rib cage muscle. And it's a combination of things. I was trying to throw a split finger. I mean, I can get into the semantics of it, but it's I wound up hurting myself. That wasn't one of the injuries that cascaded many other injuries. I came back way too soon from that injury. Again, being like a Philly kid, I'll do whatever it takes to come back. Knowing what I know now, I came back way too soon. I wasn't 100%, and they put me right in the big leagues. I remember I was facing Boston, and I was like getting crushed. I mean, I didn't have anything, and I was hurt still. And I kept pitching through it, and then I wound up hurting my shoulder. And that year was brutal, 2022, because I was up and down. They sent me down because I had options left, and then AAA I was getting pretty much shelled, and I was hurting so bad. I had 7 cortisone shots on my shoulder that year in a matter of 5 months, and they were like this big going in my AC joint, and I couldn't even carry. I rolled my suitcase behind me. It was that bad. And so that winter, I got surgery in December. I remember calling up the trainer, being like, "Listen, it's not getting any better. It's just." So I had a surgery on my shoulder, and they said you should be back in like 8-12 weeks. I'm like, all right, great. Meanwhile, I get to spring training. I can't lift my arm up still. So they put me on the 60-day, and I wound up staying on the DL for the whole year.
Oh, really?
2023. So I got a full year of service time, which is huge. That's a big deal. So I wound up again rehabbing to come doing whatever, and then 2004, I was pitching in AAA a little bit, and then they called me up. I was up for a little bit, and then they didn't want to call me up again because I was out of options. So if you guys kind of know what that means, right? Like they had to keep me in the big leagues, or they had to let me go for another, put me on waivers and things like that. So my agent said they don't want to call you up, and I was doing so well in AAA. I mean, I was doing unbelievable in AAA, like a .00 something ERA, whatever it was. And the union pushes, like when guys deserve to be in the big leagues, I had enough time. Like they're like, why isn't this guy in the big leagues? Toronto stinks. Like why? So there was, and I didn't know at the time. I just wanted to be back in the big leagues. But Toronto wanted to keep me down, so they had me the next year. If I came back even more healthy, then I had a chance. Otherwise, they would have to release me. So they called me.
And then they have an extra year of service from you as well,
right?
Arbitration.
And I was considered a Super 2. So there's a bunch of things going against me business-wise. I was a Super 2, which I was arbitration eligible. And I had like a 4-something ERA or 5, whatever it was that year. So you look at it on paper, it's like, do they pay me 800 to a 1 point something, or do they have some rookie that can do the same thing? It just didn't make any sense. So they released me in the fall, and then I signed with St. Louis on a free agent deal. And again, I signed with St. Louis because Chris Carpenter was there. I knew him. I knew Pujols a little bit from playing winter ball with him. I knew a couple guys. I knew they were good. I wanted to stay on the East Coast. I wanted to stay where Florida spring training. I didn't want to have to go out to Arizona because logistics of cars and stuff. It was either between them and Tampa Bay at the time. I signed with St. Louis because I was like, with the stuff I have now after injury, I'm more of it'd be nice to have a pitcher in the lineup. The National League is easier league to pitch in at the time. It just was. There was less damage at the bottom of the lineup, less power. Like it just aligned better to my pitching style. And I went to spring training with the St. Louis, and I had a pretty decent spring. And then I wound up getting hurt again at the end of spring. I hurt my back pretty bad, herniated a couple discs. It was kind of like a freak thing. And they sent me to Memphis, AAA, and it was just all a mess. Like I wasn't on the roster. I wasn't on the 40-man. So they said they weren't going to pay me my salary because I was hurt. This is where the minor leaguers having no union kind of stinks. They can do whatever they want. They're like, we want you to stay in Memphis. We're not going to pay you, but we'll do your rehab of your back. I'm like, so I'm going to pay a $3,000 a month rent here and not have any income? That makes sense. So I was just going to lose money. And I knew where I was physically and mentally. And I just decided that, I'll go home. I'll get my own rehab person that helped me with my shoulder before. She'll help me locally, and we'll see where we are from there. And then I winded up just started interviewing for jobs. I was like, I'll do something else. And then I got a job at AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals company. And the rest is history. I never went back to play. My last outing was technically in the big leagues against Baltimore in 2004.
Oh, wow. Did anyone ever call you back? Any teams? Hey, you want to come out?
Yeah, my agent called me a couple times. A couple teams wanted to sign me to minor league deals. And I just told my agent at the time, like, listen, do I go play a minor league deal, make like $1,200 a month when I have a little nest egg saved up? I have a mortgage here now. I bought a condo and stuff. It's like, I know what it takes to stay in the big leagues. I felt like I didn't have that stuff. I would constantly be a struggle, be up and down, up and down, up and down. I was throwing 88 to 91 with some movement. I was getting guys out, but it wasn't like being able to pop it up to 95 when I needed it, and everything wasn't as sharp. So I just looked at it as like, I could keep playing. Like a lot of guys I know keep playing, play a ton of years in the minor leagues, and then go on to coaching. But I had a 4-year degree in tech, and I had a chance to get a pretty solid job, and I figured, give it a shot, and here I am, still working.
You got to live the dream for a handful of years, man. It's
you ever given any thought to coaching back, like minor leagues or something like that?
Well, I coached at LaSalle University for almost 2 years. Back in 2010. I really loved it. I got my master's degree there, and while I was getting my master's, I talked to the baseball coach who I knew, and I said, "Listen, we work something out. You pay some of my school, and I'll coach." So it gave me a taste. I knew I was going there for get my master's degree anyway. So I coached, and I'll tell you one, Division I coaching it's a tough gig, man. You're traveling all the time, like you're never home. So to get to your point about coaching, yeah, I love it. I mean, I would love to do it, but again, it's funny. LaSalle's bringing baseball back. I don't know if you heard that, Mark.
Yeah, I just saw that
for next season.
Yep.
And people are like, "Oh, you should go for the coaching job," because I'm on the board there and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no for the money it pays, which is nothing unless you're retired, and the travel. I mean, Division I teams. I played Division II. I had no idea what Division I travel was like. Even mid major like LaSalle, small school, they're playing 50, 60 games. They're traveling. We traveled to California, Texas.
Yeah.
Every Thursday through Sunday are the games. You're playing a 4-game set. Every game's 9 innings. You're going like Thursday to Sunday. You're missing class Thursday and Friday as kids. For me, traveling every weekend and then recruiting, it's just not some. I mean, unless you're getting some serious money, like in your SEC or you're in some big conference. I mean, they just don't pay any money here, not even to make a living. They're mostly part-time gigs, and that's really tough. That's tough to do. I was talking to a kid, a friend of a friend, because he's going to go for the LaSalle job. I want to try to put a word in for him. He's out in Delaware right now, and I'm like, how's he doing it with a family of two kids? I'm like, he's a younger guy. I'm like, how do you even, not even financially, you're never home. So, and me having a kid now at home, a 4-year-old, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, and minor league coaching is even worse. I mean, they get paid no money. They are on the road 7-8 months plus winter bowl a year, and you're traveling those bus rides 8-10 hours each way. Like, that's a thankless job. Like, that is a tough road. Most of the guys I keep in touch with now, it's funny. I actually was telling Mark I'm watching the Phillies again because I can't relate to any of the guys personally. And when you know guys personally, it's a lot harder to watch the game. But now the only guys I know personally are coaches of teams. Yeah. Some guys are doing really well that I played with. At the big league level, coaching is great. I mean, somebody said, "Hey, you want to be a big league coach somewhere?" I would probably be like, "Hell yeah!" But the minor league, that's a tough road. But again, to your point, I do love it. I try to do some camps here and there, stuff like that, because it's just fun. Like I do Major League Baseball Alumni Association has camps they do every year in different cities. I try to do them when they come to Philly or in Jersey, wherever they're kind of close. So, but yeah, the coaching life, man, that's a tough lifestyle. Even high school, like Mark's doing with softball, it's a lot of commitment, a lot of work, man. It's a lot more than people think.
Yeah, what's crazy too, especially in our level, you're technically not allowed to recruit, which is this weird rule.
Which it's wild.
But
what's going on in high school?
Everybody does.
I know.
And then you just, like yesterday, we played a team. I won't name the schools, but right off the bat, we're down 12-0 after the first. Wow. And it's just, now they're a school that has AstroTurf, has turf field.
They got money.
Millions and millions of dollars invested into their sports programs. And they're playing a team like us who, it's the same type of school, but we're not them. It's like, how do I
crazy to think about the money they invest in that fool. I mean, you think about back in the day when we played, you're playing for Moss or Vogue or Tabor Rams, and you're just playing in some
you're lucky to have
up field somewhere. Yeah. And then you see these guys now, like high school kids playing in what look like fancy, at least minor league stadiums. Some of them, they're amazing stadiums.
See,
I wish that stuff existed. Well, maybe it did exist back then, but we just didn't know about it where we lived.
Yeah. I mean, I love coaching. I was just telling my assistant, I was like, I would like a year, because all the teams I coach, like I'm coaching, like I got to teach, the second base how to play second base. I got to teach the third base how to play that, the catcher. Like I've got to teach all that stuff, which is hard. I want a year where it's like, okay, I don't have to teach the game. Now I can write the lineup, and now I can do strategy. because everybody already knows their job. They know the position.
You got to get there first. That's the problem, man.
That's why I like college baseball.
Yep.
That's why I like coaching college. High school's a little more of teaching, which it's okay, but like that's like I have friends all the time. They ask, not friends, but like acquaintances of friends. They're like, "Hey, can you give my kid lessons?" And they're like 10. And I'm like, listen, I mean, you're just going to be throwing your money away. Like 10 years old, I'm not teaching kids how to throw. Like, it's just not my thing. Like, I'm just some guys, some women, they're great with younger kids. It's really hard for me to like take somebody's money and be like, this is how you throw. That's why I like talking strategy, pitch counts, different things you can do in different situations with what you have. And that's what was great about LaSalle, because the Division I level, having not realized it before I coached there, playing Division II, is Division I level, you're getting great athletes across the board. Now, baseball, they might just be okay, but they're great athletes. And you could do so much with great athletes, especially with pitchers. And it was really a lot of fun at LaSalle, being like, we were subpar as a baseball team, but as the athleticism and the camaraderie of the team, we actually had a really good season. The 1 year I coached there was really good with just, having guys with their strengths, knowing their roles. And it was a lot of fun because, like you said, you can teach more strategy, which at the college level goes, especially if you're not playing in a powerhouse conference like the SEC or ACC or something like that. Right. Just throwing fastballs for strikes. It's unbelievable how many outs you can get at the college level just throwing fastballs.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I said, it's just always teaching. And by the time, now it's a little rewarding for me because last year when I took over,
they were terrible.
I mean, they haven't won a game in 3 years, and some of the kids there didn't even have gloves, so having a full year teaching them, getting them their first win, and then watching some of the kids. We were just talking, a couple of the girls, I mean, they wouldn't have made a JV team on previous teams I've had, but now watching them grow a little bit, so that's satisfying. But it's also like,
that's true.
Damn, I want a day where I could just write a lineup, call out the play, call out a number, and the girls do it, and I kind of just sit back. Like, schools like Archbishop Wood, they have stacked teams all the time. Not saying it's easy to coach that, but
they're recruiting all the time these days. These recruits, I'll tell you.
But if you have a lot of talent, it makes your job a lot easier.
Basketball is crazy. I was watching Judge play this year. I'm like, where are they getting these kids from?
Well, Roman used to do all that back in the day, man. I remember when I went to North Catholic. Well, right, they were BS because they had open enrollment where the rest of the Catholic League schools couldn't. You played it. I was at North, and I remember playing Roman in like the basketball championship or whatever it was. And they had like future NBA dudes, and we had the guy we grew up around the corner with, and I was just like, "This is terrible. We're gonna get crushed." And of course, we did.
Yeah, they were allowed to have.
My years. They had Doherty was even good back then.
Did they bring in the Lithuanian dudes or something? One of those teams bought in all these 7-foot Lithuanian brothers, and you're just like, what's happening here?
Ryan has a kid going to Georgetown. I was watching that kid play, and then Roman has. I think all 5 of their starters are going to Division I.
Wow.
And Judge had a guy too. I mean, they had. I mean, these players. I'm like, where do they come from? The Catholic League. I mean, they ain't coming from Frankfurt, I'll tell you that much. They're hell of a play. They're good. I guess the AAU scene, the basketball scene, there's a lot of. That's why they brought in a new coach over there at Judge. He's doing a pretty good job. But coaching at that level, you got Judge, the recruiting they're doing, it's hard, man. So much time.
They got them kids everywhere. I mean, I was out in Vegas for St. Patrick's Day, I guess a year ago for a conference, and they must have been having some basketball tournament there. So I flew back to Detroit. And the whole plane was like, 6'7" young boys. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And the one, Carlos Boozer's kid is like, I guess he has twins and they're like some big draft picks. They were on the plane. And like, I'm talking to this lady that's their mom, I guess, or whatever. And I had no clue what's going on. And she's like, yeah, they were all out here for this tournament. And they had bags of swag, like free sneaks and all this stuff. And I just thought like, damn, man, that's wild. Like,
what's
crazy the level of organization for that now.
They play so much basketball. There's so many organizations, so many big things like that. There's only 2 rounds of fucking draft picks, and if you're past like pick number 20 in the NBA draft,
you're dead.
You suck. So it's like what?
But you only got, what do you got? 12 guys on a team or something? How many people are on the bench for the NBA? 12 or so. I mean, it's short bench. If you think about it. I mean, baseball, football, you have bigger rosters. You can fit in more rookies, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy that you see all these kids spending so much time. parent. I mean, year round. That's the other thing that drives me nuts with these sports.
And then we get whooped by Serbia or something. Yeah, there's a problem.
Yeah, well,
the year-round
kids aren't
sports.
playing. You know, they ain't playing all the sports, man.
Well, I think the one problem. Well, yeah, that's a problem. I mean, we all played whatever season it is you play that sport, basically. Mm-hmm. The other problem, I think, is these kids are catered to too much when they're young, and they can't handle failure. Like, you know what I mean? They didn't experience that because they've always been told they're great. I mean, even at the universities I've taught at, we have kids come in. A lot of them are D1 kids that got hurt. So kids that played for, you know, Toledo, not big D1 schools, West Virginia, places like that. They get hurt and come with us, and then you kind of see how far behind they are academically, and it's kind of sad to think that nobody did them any favors. They just thought, well, you can hoop, let's go, or you can play football, and then when you can't anymore, nobody cares about you, discard you. And they wind up at schools, you know, like mine, D2, D3 schools, and you kind of watch that progress. And I think it's, you know, I guess it's somewhat sad to think that the coaches didn't work on them as all around people, right? I mean, how many dudes are going to the NBA or Major League Baseball? Like, you got to do something else. But it's, I don't know, it's the system now. I guess.
The other problem that, and we see this on Twitter, we see it a lot, Bob, with like Jeff Fry's the one. I'll give him credit. He's the one out there really putting a spotlight on, in my opinion, the fraud of these hitting gurus, pitching gurus, all these new organizations that are there basically to take the money of a parent who thinks his or her daughter or son is going to be the next Mike Trout or Jenny Finch. It is absolutely disgraceful what I see day in and day out. And I've dealt with parents who would come in and say, hey, my daughter is a pitcher and she goes to X instructor. If I heard certain names, I automatically knew your kid wasn't a pitcher and you were being robbed. And I also knew you're going to be a pain in the ass because the pitching coach is going to tell mom what she wants to hear or dad what they want to hear. And then they're going to say, well, the coach she's playing for has to do this and they should be doing that. But, you know, watching that shit online, and like I said, Jeff really brings it a spotlight to it. It should be criminal with some of these, man. And I can imagine for you, Bob, you probably get a ton of people saying, hey, you played in the majors. I'll give you a certain amount of money to help my kid. When the reality is the kid should just be playing.
No, it's not. There's no magical thing I can do. I mean, do I know more than someone else? Probably. But at the same time, it's not like they look for this magical thing that, listen, I do 3 lessons, I should be throwing 100 and I'm like, no, there's nothing. The stuff I teach when I do that, I mean, it's pretty basic. And they're just like, that's where you see the gurus come out of the woodwork. Like people that have all these crazy gadgets and stuff, it's because it's something different. And parents are like,
they're literally making shit up.
That's what I mean. And that's where like the farm board and whatever else, there's a bunch of them out there. And it's like they're successful because it's something so different that the parents are like, oh, this, you know, and they'll line it up with some use cases of kids that have done well. It's like the one guy. I mean, Jeff always goes after that guy, the older guy, the pool hall guy.
The propeller dude.
He's made a living. He's made a living because he worked with Aaron Judge, and that's credibility. I mean, you gain it. Like this guy's one of the best players in Major League Baseball, and this guy worked with him and had success, and this guy speaks highly of him. You lean in hard on that, but again, Aaron Judge, would he be what he is without anybody? Probably.
But that guy's 6'7", 280 regardless,
That's
right? Your kid's saying. Probably not. That's the difference. You still have to have talent.
Your 12-year-old your 12-year-old is not going to hit like Aaron Judge, and that's. But again, parents just don't know. I mean, I look at my parents growing up; they wouldn't know anybody. We didn't have any money. It's like we only had Devon League, and we didn't have any. It was hard enough for me to find places indoors to throw in the off season when I was in the minor leagues around here, let alone playing one in the little league. There were no indoor facilities. Grand Slam Baseball Academy. I used to go there and try to get in there. I used to throw in the parking lot of Gallows Restaurant in Northeast. That's where I would throw.
I think Vogue was the first team we played for that had pitching machines even, Foo, remember?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, even stuff like that. Nobody had any money. The one thing I think, though, you kind of hit on this. I mean, I think now, though, people view this as a lottery ticket, right? Like if I can just get my kid to the majors or the
even
NBA,
the college.
Yeah.
They look at it for college scholarships, which again, that's what a lot of people market their kind of business around the college because they know the big league thing. College is like, college is more attainable scholarship. But even then, it's hard to get any money to go to college. I mean,
And they can rescind them for injury too. I mean, I just had this happen with some of our athletes. Kid got hurt. It was actually a swimmer, got hurt swimming, and they're rescinding his scholarship. And you think like, wow, that seems scummy, right? I mean, like the kid's hurt on your watch and you're getting rid of them, but that's the NCAA.
Yeah, and I tell girls all the time, like, hey, listen, and I tell parents, you want to be the D1 playing for Florida or Oklahoma, that's great. Well, guess what? Chances are it's not going to happen. But here's what's cool. There's 2 other divisions, and you could still play. You could still play.
There's some great academic schools.
Right, and go and get a great college education and get to play softball while you're doing it, or baseball.
I try to explain it to everybody.
The other key thing too is you can
the academic side.
You can still get scouted at small schools, right, guys? I mean, in the old days, you had to go to big schools. You can be at some tiny school and they find you now. It's not as hard, especially with the internet. I mean, imagine, right? When you're playing, it's probably VHS tapes going around or something.
Yeah.
Now people have highlight tapes on YouTube, and that's all you need.
Oh, yeah.
Man. I mean, it's got to be a little bit easier for those guys to kind of get the exposure, I think, than maybe many years ago.
Yeah. Well, there's a thing
I always
now.
look at the academics. That's I think kids, it's a hard thing to get through somebody's head, especially in the northeast part of the country here.
Yeah.
You have guys coming out of Philly and Jersey, and there's some Mike Trouts of the world that come out. They're one in every decade. But the majority, it's like, okay, it's like this one kid. It was either go to Westchester or look at a couple other schools. And I was like, you're not going to play at Westchester your first year. You're just not going to play there. And the parents were just, you got a little bit of money. And that was like pulling teeth trying to get that because, Westchester's a Division II powerhouse now. But like for the most part, there's not. I look at academics first. I mean, I went to an engineering school. That's what I was looking at when I came out of high school. But again, I mean, kids should look at that, especially down south. I mean, you can go anywhere in the country, go away to school now, and feel like you're at home with video conferencing like this.
Yeah.
I went to play in Alberta, and I had a calling card to call home every once a week just to keep in touch. But now it's like you're basically home. You go away to school, so you can go away to Florida, the South. You can go anywhere, and there's a ton of D2, D3 programs that are unbelievable, and you get a good education. I mean, there's some schools that are unbelievable. So but it's hard to get them through, especially a high school senior, trying to convince them that the academics are much more important. Even for me, looking back on it, the best thing I ever did was get a good undergrad degree because I've been working more than I play baseball now professionally.
There's now there's also a couple, and I know for softball, the NCAA has put out. Kids can register and they get an ID number, and then they can, I think, upload videos and stuff like that. So coaches can now look, and the D2, D3 coaches can look at these kids. Yeah, it's like some type of portal where they can, all right, now I don't have to fly out here or go here, especially to, softball programs where it's not obviously D1 football recruiting type, but there's kids, and we've seen, the girl Lily, who actually I'm going to have on here. A girl.
Oh, really?
I'm going to have her on.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's great.
Dude, she's a great story. Here's a kid, professor. So she wanted to be a baseball player, and she's grown up her whole life. She's been playing baseball, and she's putting out her videos. She's showing how she hits, how she throws. She's getting responses from like Hall of Famers, like Wade Boggs, and all these. Everybody's responding to her like, oh, you're doing great, do this. It is the greatest idea ever to put it all out there for everybody to see. Well, a softball, I think last summer or maybe last fall, a softball coach sees her and says, hey, do you want to come try to play softball with us? Now, she hadn't played softball yet. Her goal was baseball. She goes down, she plays, she loves it, she's kicking ass. She's going to Georgia Tech next year to play softball.
Wow.
She's playing her first year of softball in high school as a senior right now. And I think she's got like 5 home runs.
I'm shocked she made that change so smoothly. I mean, baseball is natural. Like, I feel more natural. Softball is tough, man. That ball doesn't go anywhere when you hit it. That's tough, dude.
But that's it. Well, she works and this is the thing. She works so hard. You know, she's practicing in her backyard with her parents. Like, I'm going to ask her. I don't think they pay for gurus and stuff like that.
Right.
She shows a video, posts it, and then you have professional, coaches from college, baseball commenting. And it's the greatest tool out there, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. gets great
she made the most
exposure,
of it.
scholarships. Yeah. Do you remember back in the day? What you have back in the day? Was it just the Charlie Lau videos going around? Do you remember those, the VHS tapes you could get? You guys ever see those?
I think that's before me. I have Nolan Ryan's pitching Bible. Ryan's pitching Bible on the ABCs of pitching. They were the two books I read after my first year in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I remember seeing them. I remember seeing them on TV when we were kids, and I was like, if I get this Charlie Lau video, maybe I'll be hitting better next year.
That would be it. It's like,
I seen at Nolan Ryan at a card show many moons ago. Got his autograph, and I asked him. I was like, "How do you hold the curveball?" And he showed me, and he showed how you that's how he threw it, just like that. His 12-6 curveball. And then I would try it when playing for Vogue.
Yeah.
You know, I would throw gas, but as soon as I let it go, only the ball knew where it was going, like I did.
Oh, like most of the Phillies closers, I see it. I see now.
Yeah, but I could throw that. I could throw that curveball, and it would drop, and people were like, "What the hell? How do you do with that?" So,
do you remember? You remember Chuff used to throw the knuckleball? Fool, remember Chuff?
Oh yeah,
that was wild, man. What's his name? Eddie Huff?
No.
Charlie Huff?
No, not Charlie. Sorry,
are you talking?
A guy we played with for Vogue. We used to call him Chuff after Charlie Huff because he used to throw he threw the damn sinker. Eddie Price. I used to hate that damn ball because you'd see it and you're just like, I'm going to destroy this. They're never even going to find it, and then you whiff on it and you're just like, how did that happen, man? Yeah. How did that happen?
I don't think he threw over 60. But now you've been watching baseball. What the hell is going on with all these Tommy John injuries, man? Is there?
Well, I mean, there's been a couple good articles out there. You read that one article that the Athletic, I think it was just out the other day. I sent it to what was it on? I sent it to a bunch of parents of kids about all the Tommy John injuries. I sent it to you. It's a great article. It was on. I picked it up from Fry. I think Fry texted it to me. I mean, there's a couple reasons for it. I mean, there's a combination of these kids now that are in the big leagues he came up in the system of playing year round. So you got, no cross training of different muscles in sports like basketball, football,
no recovery,
whatever, no recovery, throwing all year round. I mean, that's a big piece of it, in my opinion. And the other piece is chasing the velocity. I mean, I watch these games. I probably watched more games this year than I have in the past 20 years combined since I got done playing. Like I'm actually watching now, and you can tell by the way hitters react to balls how hard they're actually throwing. But that being said, they are throwing harder overall. But the thing they're throwing as hard as they possibly can in terms of staying within themselves. And, the first thing to go is the flexor muscle. Like you're seeing all these guys go down, like Spencer Strider, I think was from Atlanta. I mean, it's because, again, it's a combination of overuse over all the years coming up in the amateur. Like, these are the 25, 26, 27-year-olds that played in this kind of machine of baseball. And it's catching up to them. By the time you get to the big leagues, you're chasing velocity. All they're doing is throwing it's not just velocity fastball wise. They're chasing velocity on pitches that are notoriously hard on the forearm and the elbow, like cutters, and they're calling them sweepers, which I call a slider. Really, it's a real slider, but that takes a lot of torque. And I think that those two things have combined for all these injuries you're seeing. I think the lack of cross training growing up. Like I played basketball in the off season, baseball in the other season, and then you're constantly doing all kinds of other sports in the street constantly, and not having that constantly. It's like me now. I just train weightlifting wise in a certain plane of action, and I find myself like if I try to go on a basketball court right now, I might hurt myself because it's stuff I haven't trained in 20 years. And I think these guys it catches up with them, and the overuse injuries, that's what they basically are. But I mean, it's, I think it's a bigger problem than just like looking at a roster being like, oh, these guys are throwing too hard, because they're being babied more than ever in terms of pitch counts.
Yeah.
I was watching the game the other night.
That's the weird part, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, if they pull this guy, I'm like, come on, they actually finished the game. I was pleasantly surprised, but he's a pitcher. He's a real pitcher. He's throwing like 88 miles an hour pitching. But you see the guys like, even like Wheeler. I mean, if you're talking about Phillies guys, I watch some of these so-called aces. They're good pitchers, but they're going 5 innings and dropping. And it's like they don't see the lineup more. And this has been going on for years now in baseball, where they don't see the lineup for a third time. And it's just, puts a lot more on the relievers. And then relievers are throwing every day or every other day now. So it's a combination of the way, I think, utilization of pitchers, overuse growing up and going through the league, being babied in the minor leagues. This was in this article too. Like, in the minor leagues, I remember they did this when I was playing with the starters. Like no pitcher ever went over 90 pitches in the minor leagues ever. Then you get to the big leagues and you're throwing 120 pitches in a game. But in the minor leagues now, supposedly they're really pitch counts. They're doing things that are really kind of, it's good to protect guys, but then they get to the big leagues, it's all about winning. And so they'll leave them out there for 100 pitches when you're used to throwing 70. That catches up to you too. I think it's a combination of factors, but I just know it's not going to change anytime soon because the harder these guys throw, the faster they get to the big leagues, the faster they make money. And if somebody came to me and said, you got to throw 100, throw as hard as you can. Like my hardest was 96-mile-an-hour fastball, but I threw that maybe 5 times a year. But if I could go out there and throw my max effort every time and get paid a lot of money, I don't know. It'd be hard to. You can't not take that temptation. I mean, guys are going to do what's going to get them paid.
Let me ask
especially if you got a lot of guys coming from disadvantaged backgrounds or other countries. I'm sure that payday is critical to get your family out of poverty. I mean, you got to do it, even if you know that it might destroy the elbow or whatever you say. You got to do it.
Yeah, and when you're in the thick of it too, it's like a culture thing too. So I'm sure in Major League Baseball and minor league baseball right now, it's like the training's all set around that. Like guys are lighting up radar guns, and that's what it's all around. I talked to not a scout, a coach that coaches in the minor leagues. I was at a thing for Easter, and he said to me, if the guys weren't throwing at least 95, the relievers, like short relievers on the gun, they were never going to get promoted. They were just strictly going by a number on a gun, which is outrageous to me. He said he had one guy with like a 1 ERA, pitched like 50 innings that year and didn't get promoted because he didn't throw hard enough.
But you'll bring up Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn because he throws 100, right?
Yeah, that's what you're seeing now. I mean, I see it. I mean, not even the Phillies. I look at other teams. I'll see some of these pitchers, and I mean, there's a couple things now. They measure velocity when it comes
out of the hand
now instead of out of the hand. They used to do it out of the hand, or no, they're doing it out of the hand now, and they used to measure it halfway to the plate. And that because I look at some of these swings, like I threw at my hardest like 93, 94, like on average, and I look at guys the swings they take on me back then, swings I see now. Like you see, like even Bryce Harper take a turn around a 99, 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I don't buy it. That's 100. I mean, I played with guys that threw 100, and no guy's got a swing like that on them ever. And yeah, the guys are throwing, I think, harder overall. I mean, I see some of these pitchers, some of the stuff's like nasty. Yeah. But I do think like the guns are, I would say 2, 3. Like you see 99, I would say it's more like 95, 96. Like realistically, like you don't have all of a sudden in 15 years since I played, you don't have all of a sudden hundreds of guys that throw 100 now. Like it just the evolution, the human body doesn't work that way. Like 15 years,
not that quickly.
There was a documentary on it. I think it was the one with
Fastball. Was it called Fastball? I think. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So the second it's released, they're clocking it here. Now, back in the day, Nola Ryan days, they clocked it at home. I think.
Right. And obviously, the ball decreases in speed as it travels forward due to drag and
Nolan's
technology's gotten better. I mean, to catch the ball sooner. I mean, there's a lot of things that go in there again. But I will say, I think overall, the guys, especially relievers, are throwing harder because I can see swings and they're throwing hard. It's amazing how good the cutter's gotten, which is again the cutter / sweeper. It's really a slider, but how good that's gotten. Guys are throwing at like 88 to 90 miles an hour now with like significant movement. Like that is pretty impressive to me. That's why you're seeing a lot of. But again, I still don't. There's no excuse for guys like. I mean, Joey Gallo is still getting paid in this Major League Baseball. He's batting $190. I don't understand it. I just don't. He's a great athlete, obviously, but I don't understand.
Could you imagine Dave Kingman today?
Kingman would make money today.
He's an all-star.
So would Rob Deere. Yeah, all those guys would be. We used to joke about those dudes that bat at 230 or something. Schwarber's mine. He melts my brain that he's our leadoff hitter.
I mean, he hit a bomb the other night. It's like if you throw it in his wheelhouse, he doesn't miss it. He crushes it. Like I saw it the other night. He hit a home run. Like you just throw it in that. You either throw a slider that's all speed or a fastball right down the middle. But anything else, I mean, it's unbelievable. But again, you hit 40 home runs, you do the trade-off. The guy hits a buck. Now he walks a lot and he hits a lot of bombs. I see why it works for the Phillies, but again, overall, I mean, it works for the Phillies in the way they're structured. But other teams, I mean, he's lucky to be in this situation here.
And now they keep putting. When we grew up and you watch baseball, what were the stats you heard? Batting average, home runs, RBI,
wins for pitchers, strikeouts,
and that's it.
ERA, that's it.
Right. Now we're
here.
Now
you have crazy
stats, slug. Yeah. I'm like, what?
But they're all BS, man. Jeff Fry always calls dudes out on this, I think, or is it Nakayetti maybe? Or maybe both of them do. But I think it's Nakayetti does the ones where it's like you'll see WARs and Ricky Henderson is somehow like worse than, some bum that played 2 seasons, but his WAR is higher. And it's like, this is proof that WAR is trash, because when you look at some of the numbers, they just, they don't match up. I mean, I get it works most of the time, but what good is a stat if it only is, kind of works most of the time? It doesn't pass the smell test, man.
The whole analytics are good. I mean, obviously, I work in analytics in that world.
Mm-hmm.
But when you apply it to baseball and human behavior kicks in. There's no quantitative data for human behavior. And that's where grit and determination gets kind of cut out of the equation completely. Yeah. And that's where, especially in the big leagues, that's why the game's different now. It's just completely different. And I can watch it more now because, again, like the Phillies team is a fun team to watch. They have an interesting group of talent that actually I enjoy watching. But overall, the league as a whole, it's just different. It's just a way different game. And if you can get past that, like Marks and the old school guys of the world, like the Jeff Frys, Jeff Fry can't really get past it either. I just look at it as like it's just a different game, and you can kind of enjoy it a little more. But for a while there, it was hard for me for like 10 years. Like I'm like, this is garbage. But now I come to the conclusion that like they are great athletes. But at the same time, it's just different the way the game's played. Like the hardest part for me is watching the way pitchers are utilized. It's really hard for me to watch that because like I see a starter dealing 5 innings and they pull him. Like even the guy last night, was it last night? He had a one hitter and he only had 9 pitches.
90 pitches, Tolburn. Yeah.
Turnbull, right? Yeah.
Turnbull,
and I was like, I know why he yanked him. He looked like he was getting a little tired, but like, and I'm sure the pitcher doesn't want to come out. I mean, these guys.
And then what happens? They get Strom gets in there, and then he gets into a jam. I mean, he gets out of it, and baseball was set up where your starting pitchers were to take you, and it was shit. Now I have to go to my bullpen. I don't really want to, but I have to.
For an inning or two, maybe.
Yeah, they're setting up the game now to where it's almost. I think Colorado did this a few years ago, where it's basically all bullpen games. The starter
we had that. 5. We had that in the playoffs. We played a playoff game
times
where both teams had bullpen games, and I lost my brain on this and was like, "How the hell is this humanly possible that we're in a playoff run and you got a bullpen game? Like what the heck?"
And we lost that one game. And we lost that one game.
That's hard. That's hard to watch. I don't know if it's ever going to come back around. I mean, the starting pitcher is never going to go 9 innings. Like on.
Well, this is an interesting question. How do we gauge pitchers going forward? I mean, you think about the Hall of Fame. Years past, you'd say 3,000 wins. So many strikeouts. Now, like if you get 200, you'll be lucky nowadays. I mean, I don't even know how you gauge people anymore.
Not even that. I look at it from like a getting paid perspective too. Like I look at starters now. I was talking to an old reliever friend of mine who played a couple years in the big league. We were talking about the game today. Like relievers are a premium. They have huge leverage now. Like a short reliever, like a late inning reliever, 7th, 8th inning that like I was. Now those guys, you need 2 of those guys on the team, 3 of those guys on the team. You can't just have one of those guys.
You'd be making $10 million.
And the starters,
right now.
They break you out every day like Hector Colby in the old days.
That's what I mean. And the starters are still getting paid in a way that they were still like those horses, like the Wheelers and Nola just got those extensions. But how can you do that when they're only going 5 innings? How can you still give them that type of starter in like money that's going up exponentially? I think the relievers are and the relievers are getting paid a lot more too. But I think they're becoming way more valuable because, like you said, bullpen games. I mean, you have relievers going 2-3 innings in the middle of those games. That didn't happen before. So I think I don't know. The Phillies are lucky the way they're structured this year because they actually have some decent starting pitching. All 5 are decent. Like a lot of teams, I see 2 or 3 solid, and then the rest is kind of like filling the gaps. Then you have bullpen games during the year. You have position players coming in to pitch.
I hate that. Oh my God.
Well, that used to happen. I mean, I think Steve Lyons did it one time when he tried to play every position in a game years ago. Or it would be like an anomaly. Yeah, and now it's like, oh, we suck. Guess what? Wilson Contreras is pitching, or your catcher's pitching, and you're just like,
I saw it the other day. It was an 8-4 game, an 8-4 game.
Yeah, 8-4 game.
I was like,
that's not even that out of reach, to be honest. I mean, it's a 4-run game. Again, if you're down 20-0 or something, let the bat boy pitch or whatever. But I mean, if it's a close game, what the heck?
I think what they should do, because that's so infuriating. And people get hurt. Like Jose Canseco got hurt doing that one year. They should have, like hockey has the emergency third goalie, who's like some dude.
Cameraman.
It literally is. It's just some random guy. They should have 3 people on a roster that can
some
only
local
come
college
in,
dude
who's like you, me. Just get in there and throw the ball over the plate. You're not risking any injury to any player. It doesn't matter. You've basically given up the game. So it doesn't matter if this guy gets shelled, gets hurt, whatever, you can replace him. It's literally like an emergency goalie, but for baseball. After the 7th inning, you can bring this dude in under certain conditions. You got to be losing by 10. I mean, it is so infuriating to watch a fucking player come in and then people try to make, oh, this is funny. No, this is embarrassing. Yeah, this is mismanagement. Like,
well, and it's happening so frequently now, it tells you that.
And you all may know this. I'm not a fan of Rob Thompson. I think he is the reason we lost the World Series. He's the reason we failed in the playoffs last year because he kept bringing Krimble in when he was done. It's you got to take the game out of even his hands. Like
it was Mitch Williams all over again, man. Because remember, Mitch was falling apart, and they kept going with him, stuck with him, and it fell apart. And they did the same with with Kimbrel. And it's a shame because I mean, obviously, he's Hall of Fame caliber player, great player. You hate to see kind of tail end of his career, that kind of stuff happen. But I don't know. This is maybe the stats problem or the analytics problem. At some point, you just have to use your brain and say, look, I know this is my dude. Hasn't played well the last couple of games. Maybe I got
it today.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's baseball. I mean, baseball's a long season. So you have guys that start the season red hot and guys that start the season terrible. And then by the end of the season, it's a long season. The numbers sort themselves out usually, and kind of the cream rises and it doesn't. But you have those short streaks where you're down. You have to be able to say, we go in another direction today. Now, maybe they didn't have anything else because all we have is guys that throw 100 and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, I would have went a different
route. It's tough. I think the manager doesn't do as much today. The manager doesn't have as much say as you think they do, especially now. I mean, especially what I've heard through the grapevine from different coaches that I know, the way it's not just the GM, but the GM has an army of guys in the front office that are in constant contact during the game.
Really?
Making decisions.
So bureaucrat ruining it.
They have analytics departments now that actually have a big say. And then, the manager might write out the lineup card, depending on the manager. Now, a lot of these managers now, I don't know about Rob Thompson, but like, unless it's like a Buck Shoulder or like a Joe Girardi or like not even Joe Girardi, like somebody who's been around forever, like a Dusty Baker, I'm sure they have a lot more say. Sure. But I think there's a lot more going into some of these decisions than just the manager being like, this is what I want to do. Like you said, using their brain, just being like, oh, think about the people, not just the analytics. And I think they're getting a lot of pushback, like a lot of times, especially in a playoff atmosphere where so much is on the line. I think they're going with the statistical kind of, okay, this is the best chance we have here. And it's tough. The Rob Thompson, the way he's so successful with the team he has and the guys love him so much is because he works with the players as players, not just as, numbers. Like players do respect him. They like him a lot, especially guys I've talked to around. Like, they love this guy. He's been in baseball forever. Guys around the whole league know this guy. And that's why he does so well with the team. And that's all you need at the big league level. At the big league level manager, it's not like a coach at Moss or Vogue or like in high school or college. Like the manager at the big league level, I always was told he has to keep the last guy on the bench happy and the worst pitcher on the team happy. And that's it. Because he just don't want no bad seeds in the clubhouse. That's it. But other than that, I mean, you're basically running. These are big league players. They're winning and losing the games. The manager rarely wins or loses a game. Paul Quantrill used to say to me, in a big league season, 182 games or 162 games, whatever it is, whatever it is now. I don't know. Is it still 162 games?
Yeah, 162.
So he said a manager's decision probably influence 5 games and wins and 5 games and losses. That's it. That's all the influence actually has in the averages. And that was back. And I always took that and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, how much do they really? I mean, pitch. But now, to Mark's like probably what Josh, the way pitching changes are done, there's a lot more involved. A little bit. Not the pitcher doesn't hit anymore. It's not that much. But there's a little more strategy involved. Like, okay, you have to have enough arms left. Like going to the Kimbrel example, you have to have enough arms left. I'm sure Kimbrel was running on fumes at that point. No matter how, right.
Well, that's the problem. He's
not going to not take the ball.
Right. Yeah.
But who else are they going to go to in that game? Like, there was nobody really left in the bullpen that was to be put in that situation. Krimble, at least mentally, he could handle that situation because he's been around the guys as a Hall of Famer. But physically, he might have been out of gas. It's like Mitch Williams. I was watching, hearing the stories all the time. Like, he was out of gas.
Yeah.
Like his velocity was down, everything was down, but he mentally he could handle the situation because he did it all year, and that's what you hope for. You hope for he can get by with his Kimbrel's average stuff is still better than 90% of the league. I mean, his stuff is nasty still to this day. I was watching him in that game last year. I remember
dead, man. He was done, and everyone knew it. And like the game before, he was dead. And then they bring in the rookie kid. What was his name? Corcoran or whatever?
Ryan Corcoran. Yeah.
Oh, right.
That blew my mind too. Why they run with him so hard? I didn't. Well, I mean, I guess maybe he's a fresh arm is the only reason, but
like, he was shell shocked when he got in there. You could see it. He was overwhelmed. Like,
he pitched all right initially. Right? It's got. I mean, imagine that kind of pressure for your debut. Sort of.
I remember how I felt my first big league outing. It was like this is like first couple outings were in the playoffs. That's insane. Like
you're in the national championship.
He's going to be so good. He's going to wind up closing games this year.
He's going to be good for sure.
It just needs a little bit of time.
But like you said, they win and lose 5 games. I understand that. The problem was they were in
which 5 games?
It's those 5 games.
Right. Well, I think we've talked about this kind of stuff before. I think coaches across sports probably take too much heat than they deserve and get too much credit, than they probably deserve as well. Because at the end of the day, is Bill Belichick a great coach? Sure. But it's a lot easier when you have Tom Brady, right? Or it's a lot easier if you have Nolan Ryan or Albert Pujols. So, I mean, I get to some extent, they're not as influential as we think, right? I mean, Belichick's unemployed right now, and he's arguably the best coach ever. I mean, I get it. But, like, sometimes you just see it and you're like, this is where you as a coach, at least, again, I'm speaking from the outside, I don't know anything, is you think you'd have to say, I know the analytics say this, but Kimbrel don't have it today. I'm going to go a different direction. Right. And I get it. Also, it's a coin flip. If he strikes him out, this conversation doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Or
he doesn't seem like the guy that will do that, though. That's my concern.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like the guy that's going to say F it. I mean, like, you have, and again, he's putting up 40-plus bombs a year. But Kyle Schwarber should be in the 5-hole, and that's the end of it. He would still get his 40. The problem with that
is he's not going to see as many strikes in the 5-hole. They'll pitch around him. They won't let him hit those bombs. Like in the 1 hole, you want to get the first out. He hit so many getting ahead of count type strikes. I mean, you can't argue. One thing I had this conversation. You can't argue with a team that's going to basically went the World Series 1 year, should have been to the World Series last year with Kyle Schwarber in the
should have won it.
Like, how can you change? How can you change it up when you're having that kind of success?
You're right.
Even if they don't go to the World Series, they can go to the playoffs. Your goal as a major league organization, and the Eagles have done this great for 15 years now, is to be competitive enough to make the playoffs or close to it, that you can fill the stadium every game during the season. That's what it's all about. Like, the fans care more about winning, period. I mean, that's what, the business side of it. If the Phillies can pack, it's a hot ticket. Every game is sold out right now. If they can continue to do that with a team that's competitive enough, that's what it's all about. I mean, you got to remember, they don't care. I mean, they care about winning and losing. The players do, especially down the stretch. But the teams, I mean, they're about making money. Let's be honest.
Yeah, their business.
And if they can be competitive, I always said about the Eagles, they won 1 Super Bowl.
Except
the amount of, I mean, think about all the money they made as an organization. How much? I mean, over 15 years of being just close to division top every year. I mean, would you rather 1 Super Bowl and then be terrible for 15 years, or would you rather be competitive?
That's the $1 million question, right? I mean, I remember seeing at one point the Eagles.
Fans would take the Super Bowl, that's for sure.
Well, they were talking about like winning percentages, and I think it was like the Patriots and then us, like over some 10-year time span. We had like the second best record in the NFL, but really didn't have much to show for it. And that's where it gets hard. Like, would you rather be the Buccaneers that caught lightning in a bottle and win the Super Bowl, and then you kind of go back to sucking? I mean, I don't know. When the Phillies won the World Series and when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I was an emotional mess, crying. My nose started bleeding. I was like, I don't care if we ever win again. I've finally seen this in my lifetime. And then by the next season, I'd forgotten that and I wanted to win again. You know what I mean? And I think that's the hard part. It's like when the Phillies sucked in the old days and we had cheap owners and Chris James was our best player and Von Hayes. All right, you're not winning. I get it. But we have the 3rd or 4th best, highest payroll in baseball. I don't know. I just kind of expect you got to get over that.
I think they might be making a turn now because we're on a 4-game winning streak. I think
Strider getting hurt helps us quite a bit. I mean, Atlanta losing Spencer Strider changes the
but it's a shame for baseball.
It is because he's a great young pitcher, and he's got an interesting mustache. But that's a
lot of mustaches in the league. There's a guy in Pittsburgh that's going to get called up any day.
That rookie kid. Skynes or Skews or something.
In college.
Paul Skeens
in college was like
he's a stud, man.
I mean, He is.
He's got the Super Trooper stash.
Yeah. I thought
They're playing, and see, this is what pisses me off about baseball, where they're going to wait until this certain date so they can get an extra year's service out of him. Because Pittsburgh's not going to keep the kid, because Pittsburgh, Oakland, teams like that are the minor leagues for the rest of the fucking MLB, and it's a shame.
He'll get called up like after the All-Star break. You'll see that a lot after the All-Star break.
And apparently he's crushing down there.
Oh yeah, that's what I saw the other day. Yeah, Super 2s. I mean, basically, you usually have to have 3 years of service to go to arbitration, or then you need 6 years to go to free agency. But but the Super 2 thing is what kind of they average out all the guys, because that guys are getting screwed. They get sent down like a week left in the season. They weren't so they fixed that. The union fixed that by having what are called Super 2s, where they average out all the guys that haven't been up for that third year, and they say, let's say you've been up for 200 days. Okay, it's everybody with 200 days or less are considered that third full year.
So they can't manipulate it as much.
All-Star break. Because if he's caught up like a month into the season or a month and a half, he'll still be a Super 2, and that year will count as a full year. So you'll see a lot of times after the All-Star break. That's
just bring the kid up. Man.
If a guy's really good.
Especially if you play for Pittsburgh, man. Especially Pittsburgh. Come on.
Well, how about Baltimore? Baltimore brought up Jackson Holiday. I was shocked.
Oh, is he up? I didn't even see that.
Yeah, he came up like last week.
Yeah, he
got some young talent down there. They're going to be nasty, man, for a long time.
He's going to be a stud, man. That kid, he's got the attitude.
If they can pay them kids, they'll be great.
Well, listen, man, we almost went 2 damn hours. This was great. I wanted to ask you this, Bob, because you've pitched. You were there. John Smoltz famously says the difference between 100 pitches in a game and 150 is 0. There's no difference. Do you believe that? Is the 100 pitch mark just this phantom made up thing, or is that legit?
It's funny, when my senior year, when I was pitching in college, I started a game, and I started I think it was a 9-inning game. We always pitch complete games. I mean, everybody pitched a complete game. We didn't have any pitchers, and the Toronto Scouts said I threw 146 pitches. We never kept pitch counts ever. I had no idea. Like, he kept a pitch count because he was the scout, but we had no idea. I probably agree with that. Like, I look back, like, I don't know, difference between 100 and 150. I mean, 150 is a lot of pitches. Maybe 100, 125, 130.
I know he's
being hyperbolic, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, that's true. But, like, I don't know why 100 became this. I guess it's because it's like 10 pitches an inning, basically, or close to like a little more than that. And you figure a solid inning is like 12 pitches, 12, 13, 14 pitches. Maybe that's where the 100 came from. I don't get it. People hit the 100. It's like, oh my God, their arm's going to fall off. I think it's more wear and tear over time. Like, if you go 131 game and then go 80, 80, 80, 80, and that, I mean, I don't see it. But if you're going like a Nolan Ryan type, he was
9 innings every day for a whole season.
If you're going like Rick Langford was one of my pitching coaches. If you remember Rick Langford, he threw 27 complete games in a row one time, and he said one game he threw almost 200 pitches. Now his arm, he couldn't even lift his arm up. He had no elbow left. But he played 20-some years in the big leagues too. So I think it's more about I don't know. I don't know where this all came from. Like, this 100 pitch mark being like evil. Like, I'm going to watch a kid it's funny. I'm going to watch a Judge game today. Judge is playing Germantown Academy, and my buddy's kid pitches for Germantown Academy, and he's starting. And it's funny, they hold him to these strict pitch counts, and I'm like, no, it's something I can't understand. It's not like injuries are going down, like we talked about earlier. It's not like injuries are going down;
they're going up.
There's more injuries than ever with load management, pitch counts, all this stuff, extra days off and stuff. It's kind of crazy.
No curveballs before you're like 15, like stuff like that. Like,
it's ridiculous. I looked it up from where it was like the 60s, 70s, 80s. There was like 10 Tommy Johns, or I think it was 7, and then in the 90s there was maybe like 20. And then once we hit the 2000s, it's literally like every team has 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And it all happens when you start doing these pitch counts, start workload, load management on them and shutting their arms down. It just, it wasn't broke. Why did they have to try to fix it?
Now kids, once you get into professional baseball, you start doing all these weighted ball drills, and you see these paychecks guys are getting. I mean, I would be doing the same thing right now. Somebody said I could throw 100. I mean, I would be doing the same thing. I just would, because it's the thing to do to get to the big leagues and make the most money you possibly can.
You got to do what you got to do.
So you kind of follow the tribe. Everybody's doing it that way until the whole system kind of reverts back a little
just
bit.
need
which you
one
see in
team.
sometimes.
Yeah.
One
You see
organization.
some-
You know,
This is all Billy Bean ruined this for us. This is all Oakland ruined this for us with
Moneyball,
Moneyball.
man.
They've
I know.
ruined.
I know.
that's stupid.
I know.
They don't ever
Meanwhile,
talk about the
Moneyball
studs
had
on the
three of the
team.
best pitchers they had.
Yeah.
They actually all 5 of their pitchers were studs. They were like,
Yes.
I mean, they were
Mulder.
stacked with pitching. Mulder, Zito,
Mhm.
Hudson.
Yeah, Tim Hudson.
And
And
studs
then the
are
fourth guy
awesome.
was Blanton. Blanton was one of the 5.
Joe Bland. Yes, dude, I love him. He's one of my favorites.
I know.
He's one of my favorite
I mean,
Phillies, dude. I love Joe Bland.
They were stacked just because a couple guys walked to get on base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was, but again, going back to the human element, I always talk about Moneyball. They never won in the playoffs.
Yeah, what did it get you, right? You got a movie.
Analytics
It's a
don't win the
Disney movie.
playoffs. Yeah,
You don't get you a Disney film.
You got a movie and a team that no one knows where it's going to go in a couple of years.
I know that sucks.
Did you
But
see,
that's
when you were talking
Oh.
about minor league ball earlier, I was looking on the internet because I remember seeing this before. They had showed, they publicly shamed the Oakland A's because their minor league team, their food. And it was essentially food like the prison cheese sandwich, like 2 pieces of white bread, a Kraft single, and like a green looking tomato. And that was their lunch. And one of the A's minor league players like put it out there.
I always talk about all the
put it
time.
on blast.
I still make them once in a while now. Peanut butter, and you cut up a banana, put a peanut butter and banana sandwich. That was my A-ball lunch every single day for
The Elvis
7 months.
special.
You would think they would
Every day,
invest
7 months.
more money and effort into.
They do now.
doing-
They do a little better now, a little bit better now.
Mhm.
From what I hear, it's gotten better, a lot better compared to what it was. But yeah, peanut butter, banana sandwiches, cheese. One cheese slice you're allowed if you're making a cheese sandwich, only one. One of those ones you peel out of the plastic.
Yeah, the Kraft.
The Kraft single.
But it cracks me
It's
up. It's like all the
32%
guys,
cheese.
they would draft a guy in the first round, give him like $4 million, and then say, "Okay, your lunch is going to be a cheese sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich." Like, it made no sense to me. Like not even me, but like the big invested guys.
Protect your investment.
Yeah.
Protect your investment.
Yeah.
Feed him well, making sure he's feeling good and healthy. I mean, that seems common
Give
sense.
them the best training, the best everything. Do it for all your players. You could have the best farm system in the world, but what do I know?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
Hey,
well, hey, listen, brother, I appreciate you coming on.
Mhm.
We'll definitely do this
Good to have.
again. We could talk once we get through the couple more weeks of baseball, see where everything's at. Maybe we could talk about Ohtani on the next one and his gambling addiction.
I'll bet you $50 we don't.
Or I can ask you guys questions about the sheriff when you worked in your days as the knocking down doors, serving warrants, and all that stuff. Like in Philly, I love hearing those stories. They were great. All the podcasts, you guys talking about those stories.
We had some wild times.
The next one we do next week, I'm going to tape a couple podcasts with some of the other people, but we're going to do a live one next week. We were talking. It's just going to be warrant unit story from start to finish, man.
That's what
I
Make sure you shoot me a text. Let me know.
I'll let you know. I got my buddy sent me. So we would keep a log of all of our daily activities, all the arrests and everything. We'd have a running log for the shift. I was able to open it up. I found arrests in there. I was like, oh shit. Like, didn't even know. I'd read the name and I remember instantly, like, I remember what happened with this one. It's crazy. So we have a bunch to bring up. So, all right. All right, gentlemen, enjoy your Saturday. Bob, I appreciate it. Professor, and I will talk to you. Everybody, thanks for joining us. 344 people watching right now. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. Talk to you later. Enjoy your Saturday.
Right. See
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Later.
Yeah.